Good morning, my lovelies. So, I thought I will do a bit of content on soul connections just so that everybody understands where it comes from. Okay, so in terms of record, Plato, I believe, in the 4th century, was kind of, I guess, if you like, the founder. Now, they go into ultimate descriptions about drinking out of the river of forgetfulness before incarnating back on earth. But I think what they were trying to sort of cover was the idea of soul ties and the fact that I guess we pick our paths, we pick our connections before we come down to earth. Okay, so then it moves into the Vedic texts, and I guess the more Buddhism kind of traditions. Okay, so ancient Eastern philosophies are more so concentrated on the idea of karma. Okay, so rather than it being like this really rigid, you will sign here and you will go there and they will meet you there. Yeah, so I guess in the 4th century it was very rigid, but you have to remember that there was an ultimate lack of knowledge at this point. So as time went on, it sort of, I guess, lent more towards the idea of the cycle of life and the cycle of relationships. And I guess that their belief was more so anchored at the idea that you could come back into, so say like enter a new life, but you have to resolve past life difficulties, I guess, with other people. So say for instance something was not resolved in this lifetime, it would follow you on for more lifetimes. So really it was kind of more about balancing spiritual debt. What you take from one life you will be made to repay in the other. Okay, so then we move on to theosophy, which was it late 1800s? There was a lady, and I swear her name was Helena Blavatsky. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but figures like her really kind of then started to concrete the idea that actually rebirths were more blatant and they were deliberate, they were more deliberate, and that actually, I guess she was a little bit spiritual from what I've ever researched. So her bringing this idea into the West kind of made the West see that actually all of these things happen for a reason, and that actually it is this cycle and we go through this sort of cycle, but the idea of death and rebirth actually is more deliberate than anything else, and that it's more for educational reasons and learning soul evolution. Then it takes it into 100 years later, and there was a famous American psychic, and his name was Edgar Kuntz or something like that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the second name right, but anyway, he then brought the idea of group soul evolution, which is where everybody got the idea from, maybe coming down and I'll be the mum and so will be the dad and they'll be the kid, and then like in another life all of the roles change. So if you can see the sort of like on the timeline how everybody is sort of, it's almost like they've kept the same subjects but changed the context. And I've found all of this stuff incredibly interesting for a long time. But going from like, I think it was the 80s to the present moment is where people like Dolores Cannon come into play. And then obviously she's put her idea onto evolution and what she believes happens, and I feel like again in 100 years time people are going to have a lot more information. So as you can see, going through time, really we all do have soul ties and soul connections. And even though everybody has got these different explanations of why they think, it doesn't take away the idea that it's still there and it still happens.